of being in this pandemic global public health emergency is that we can't touch one another like we used to, like we're used to doing. So I really miss it. And I imagine that you do too. And there's times when you probably miss it more than others. To me, the physical pleasure of that contact it's amazing. It's transformative. It changes talking to people and looking at people into a whole different level of spiritual connection when we can reach out and make that physical contact. It's the most, to me, it's the most fundamental way of communicating, and it's the most complete way of communicating. And at times it feels like it's the only way to communicate our caring connection to someone else is through that contact. So in the midst of this, I don't dispute the need to keep our distance. I think it's really important. I think we're doing the right things. I just want to acknowledge that it's very, very difficult for us to be able to continue to do that, especially when we find ourselves in moments that are matters of life and death, or feel very, very powerful in that way. So I promise you, I'm not going to leave you in a bummed out space here. When we finish, I'm going to give you some ways to come back to feeling some of that magical touch, even at a distance. This all comes about because I have a client, or should I say a friend, we've been working together many years, whose mother died. And the problem is that her mother in her 80s had a number of illnesses and was struggling for a while. But it came to a point where they had to call an ambulance if there was going to be any hope at all. So they made the call, the ambulance came, and as happens in our world today, it was decided she had to go to the hospital if she is going to have any chance of recovering from this. So they loaded her up on the ambulance, and no family member was allowed to ride with her. When they got to the hospital, no family member was allowed to go into the hospital. And, the sad part of this is that I think she got the best care she could possibly get, but she died among the professionals and not among her loved ones. And that's so sad for my client. It's sad for me whenever I think about this, whenever you think about this for yourself or someone else, not being able to be there with someone the way that you want, especially with touch. So, let's do a little tapping, because this may have triggered some strong feelings for you, as it has in me, as I remember the death of someone that I love and I wasn't able to be with them. So when anybody dies, or you're in that kind of place, you're in a crisis. And so we're going to do the crisis tapping together here. And then we'll come back in a minute to talking about the hugs again. But I think it's important that we all tap together. You've seen me do this lots of times. Just do it along with me. You can find it at my website, www.rlbray.com. Index finger under the collarbone, tiny finger under the collarbone. And then we do the 9 gamut series, back of the hand right there. Close your eyes, open your eyes. With your eyes, look down to the right. Now with your eyes, look down to the left. Now whirl your eyes in a big circle. Now whirl your eyes in the other direction. And then hum. Now, all I would ask you to do here is we're just going to repeat what we just did. This is the crisis tapping pattern. That's what we use when we can't do anything more precise in the moment. And it's often very effective in helping us deal with these overwhelming feelings that come with a sudden traumatic loss. Index finger under the collarbone, tiny finger under the collarbone. So notice what you're feeling now. Now, if you didn't get some relief and you're at a subjective units of distress at a higher number of overwhelming feelings, maybe you just need to tap again, or maybe you need to use a different technique. There's lots that can help you. If it was helpful for you and you haven't gone all the way down in terms of coming back to yourself in this moment, you can always do it again. So, but once we find ourselves not so overwhelmed by the crisis of the loss and the pain of the loss, we can begin to think about things like not being there for them and really wanting them to be there. And we find that not only in these situations, but in a lot of situations. So getting ourselves to this point where we can do a virtual hug, it's not so hard. When you hug somebody, it's a real thing. It's an experience that you have and that the other has, and it becomes something that's part of who you are. And we can bring that up simply by remembering it. It doesn't go away. It's still there. We can remember it. We can visualize it. We can even wrap our arms around ourselves to help trigger us back into that place. But we can come back to that. So, if people know me, I'm a really good hugger. And I really like hugs a lot. So if we haven't been able to see each other for a while, I'd like to give you a hug. And the way I would ask you to do that is just remember the last time we hugged. Now, you can imagine it. You can visualize it. You can hear our heartbeats. However you bring that up. And as you bring that up, let yourself activate it in this moment. Let that experience become real. Now, if you don't know me, that's fine. Think somebody who's the best hugger you know. And just let yourself have that experience in this moment. And notice what that's like. It feels really good, because what happens is when you activate that energy in yourself, I feel it. When I activate it in me, I send it to you. And even though we can't be there physically together, we can still hug one another and share that connection with one another that's so powerful and is so wonderful. So I would ask you just to send me a hug. Send someone you love a hug. Take a hug from somebody else, because all you have to do is go to that space and then activate your energy to make it an experience that you're having right now. I know you'll still miss it, but it's the best we can do, and we got to keep coping. You got to keep the distance. We got to keep doing the things that are working to make us all safe. So if you have any thoughts about this, I would love to see some comments. If you have any kind of questions or concerns, I'd love to hear about that. And please, if you think this idea of hugging at a distance is useful, pass it on to somebody else. Maybe somebody you want to hug or you want to get a hug from. Bye-bye. Have a good day.